The Transformers will return after these messages.
And the Decepticons, they don't have a ship anymore, right?
I don't know, but I suspect they have a plan. Bumblebee, I want you to spy on the Decepticons.
Hey, I want to go along. Can I, Bumblebee?
Sure. Just leave the driving to me.
Load the prisoners!
How are we gonna get out of this?
By the skin of our teeth.
I didn't know human teeth had skin.
It's been a while since we last saw Cybertron's 2 moons, as well as the Autobots stationed upon them. Not far away, closing in at high speeds, is Unicron himself. Whatever cloaking or warping technology Unicron has in order to conceal his approach, it is not divulged to the audience. But the reaction of Jazz and Cliffjumper on Moonbase 1 at seeing an entire celestial body suddenly approach on the horizon tells us that Unicron's appearance comes with almost no warning.
Where'd that come from?
Who cares? I'm more worried about where it's going.
The witty dialogue is always appreciated, but just as we're appreciating it, we once again find ourselves watching 2 more long-standing and beloved characters of the series face certain demise. And just after watching the Decepticons grow in strength, it's hard to see the Autobots about to take yet another huge hit. As Unicron begins his assault, Jazz, whose entire speciality is thinking outside the box to solve problems while keeping a cool head, already understands the situation is bleak. Unicron's magnetic field begins interfering with Moonbase 1's scanners, scrambling them just before his pincing horns dig violently into the surface of the moon. As the base begins crumbling around Jazz, the first instinct this top Autobot officer has is to send a message to Earth. Less of a call for aid, and more as a warning to the others, to get word out about this incredible new threat that appeared out of nowhere. We're shown a bird's-eye view of Autobot City, with post-battle cleanup in full swing. It also reminds us of what bad shape the Autobots currently are in. Daniel is directing Springer and RC as they reset some supporting structure, and Blaster carries over replacement parts for the area just as Jazz's message begins to come through on his receivers. He transforms to better broadcast the transmissions to the others gathered around him. Newly commissioned Autobot leader Ultra Magnus, not far away, comes running closer to hear the emergency message.
Roger me, Wilco me, anything. Hello, Earth.
I'm picking up a faint signal.
This is Jazz, a ginormous, weird-looking planet that showed up in the suburbs of Cybertron.
And it's attacking Moonbase 1.
Jazz, Cliffjumper.
Ultra Magnus is understandably alarmed at this. His first thoughts are not of losing the moon or the base on it containing a huge part of the Autobots' assault forces they'd been building up for retaking Cybertron from the Decepticons. No, Ultra Magnus's first thoughts are of the safety of his men, but the transmission is already too far gone to let them hear him. We're shown Unicron and Moonbase 1, or what's left of it, as Unicron crunches through its remaining half. Debris flying out into space, waves of energy crackling, or whatever inner mantle a Cybertronian planetoid might have, are seen flowing, moving, breaking into candy for Unicron. A shot from the surface of the moon shows us Jazz and Cliffjumper struggling to walk along the ground, as structures and the very ground itself are breaking apart all around them, being pulled into Unicron's immense gravity. We watch as the 2 Autobots rush past the crumbling floor towards an escape shuttle. In the cockpit as they fire it up, Jazz talks Cliffjumper through the situation.
Got to blast free if we can.
Ignition and...
Hit it!
The many thrusters on the back of the shuttle ensure a quick takeoff. as their escape velocity takes them past the final chunks of the moon base being ingested. They find that escaping the sheer force of Unicron is beyond the shuttle's capabilities. The thrusters sputter and spit. We see Jazz desperately trying to get the ship to keep flying forward as Cliffjumper becomes more alarmed.
Jazz, we're not getting away!
The shuttle is unable to maintain velocity and finally succumbs. It hurtles backwards, flipping end over end into Unicron's maw. And of Cybertron's first moon, there is nothing left. Meanwhile, in Autobot City, Ultra Magnus and his cleanup crew have gathered around a small communications console to get a hold of anyone left on the moon bases and find out what's going on as they receive a transmission from Bumblebee and Spike.
This is Spike and Bumblebee up here on Moonbase 2.
This thing, this monster planet just ripped the first moon to shreds.
And it's heading this way.
We'll try and slow it down.
But you'd better get here fast because we're not gonna...
Despite the urgent nature of this scene, I do love the way that Spike and Bumblebee's dialogue plays off each other, even in this stressful situation. It's a subtle sign of two dudes who have been best buds for over 20 years. Spike's last comment is cut short as the transmission is once again scrambled, which signals to us in the audience that Unicron has arrived at Moonbase 2.
We'll try and slow it down.
But you'd better get here fast because we're not gonna...
Daniel cries out while sitting atop RC's shoulders as he sees his father's image sizzle out on the view screen. As much as Hot Rod tries to be a friend and a big brother to Daniel, RC adopts a very protective maternal instinct for him as well. The image of Daniel on her shoulder implies that she wanted him to be able to at least see Spike, hoping to see he's safe, especially after Daniel had just witnessed the death of Optimus Prime. There is something about RC's expression here that denotes that she may be worried not just about the well-being of her friends on Moonbase 2, but she may have just allowed Daniel the trauma of seeing his father for the last time. The gleaming and beautiful reflective alien surface of Cybertron's second moon glistens in starlight, its serenity broken by the looming threat of Unicron, cresting its plains in the distance. Truly, the background paintings of this movie are underappreciated. Bumblebee and Spike begin connecting cables to some control box we can only assume is a kind of detonator, as Spike works a console setting a timer for 20 seconds? Minutes? Yeah, let's assume it's minutes, considering they still have to make it to their own escape shuttle.
Bumblebee, activate the explosives!
If this doesn't stop it, nothing will. The explosives are activated. Let's get out of here!
And they both book it. 18. We see a hellish scene of the surface of this moon being torn apart and sucked up for Unicron's consumption, while Spike and Bumblebee hurriedly rush towards their ride off the moon. 16. They've made it to the shuttle, barely, just as the surface around it begins to tear away upwards.
Hurry! It's gonna blow!
Their thrusters activate, and as they speed away from the moon, we can see that Unicron hasn't yet quite taken hold of this moon. It seems if there's one good thing about Moonbase 1 being attacked first, it gave Moonbase 2 a fighting chance to prepare for Unicron and perhaps have the time they'd need to escape him. 9. 8. Unicron finally bites into the second moon and quickly begins to ingest it, and it crumbles into bits as his horns pull it through his mouth. 1. 0. The timer finishes its countdown just as the moon becomes fully ingested into Unicron. Bumblebee and Spike timed everything perfectly. The explosion is humongous. All the munitions and artillery stored on Moonbase 2 that the Autobots had been building up in their preparation for attacking the Decepticons on Cybertron are detonated all together. I always assumed that's what Spike and Bumblebee had wired up. They probably had planned it as a contingency if the Decepticons chanced an attack on this moonbase. All those weapons of mass destruction exploding at the same time would eradicate anything nearby the moon, not to mention anyone on it. The explosion, even from inside of him, appeared to be bigger than Unicron himself. The force of it, despite the vacuum of space, sends the shuttle Spike and Bumblebee escape on careening, knocking Bumblebee off his feet as Spike struggles to regain control. As the shuttle stabilizes, the two old friends celebrate their success in not only escaping, but destroying that imposing dreadnought of a planet.
It isn't even dented!
All the debris from the moon is quickly moving directly towards the still open and undamaged maw of Unicron. The only thing Spike and Bumblebee ultimately did was save Unicron the trouble of chewing. Spike is understandably concerned.
It isn't even dented! Oh shit, what are we gonna do now?
The pull Unicron is exerting on the debris extends all the way to their shuttle, and they quickly realize their fate is sealed.
We're being sucked into it!
Bumblebee can only cry out in horror as we see the shuttle pulled directly into Unicron, with no chance of escaping. Even though the attempt proved futile, Bumblebee and Spike's quick thinking and actions are a testament to these long-standing characters. The scene is one of my favorites in the way that it shows their teamwork, their willingness to sacrifice, and the absolute guts they have in utilizing the explosion of a moon to try and stop an absolute nightmare like Unicron from harming any more of their friends, and even protect Bumblebee's home planet of Cybertron, despite its current occupational rule by the Decepticons. By default, it means Bumblebee and Spike, in a roundabout way, were also trying to spare the Decepticons, their enemies, from destruction by this being. Such is the way of true heroes. The loss we feel at seeing even more well-known and well-regarded characters like Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, Jazz, and Spike is almost numbing at this point. Yet, it's still unforgiving to watch. It's just that the good guys are getting pummeled and could really use a break in this film. There's only so much more we can take. We see Galvatron standing atop the dais at the scene of the coronation, looking up into the skies of Cybertron, witnessing the destruction of Moonbase 1 by Unicron. This appears to be a slight snafu in editing, as Moonbase 2 still appears in the sky, and reading the script shows that originally Moonbase 2's destruction didn't come until later in the film. But it doesn't really matter much, as the destruction of any moon stirs rage from Galvatron. He doesn't take kindly to Unicron helping himself to those delicacies. It's possible Unicron is doing so just to clear the way for Galvatron to more easily attain the Matrix. However, it's just as likely that Unicron is doing it to goad Galvatron into action, to accomplish that mission sooner rather than later. Especially after the many gifts he'd already bequeathed Galvatron, and yet Galvatron has yet done nothing to go after the Matrix. As I said before, Unicron will come to collect what is owed.
How dare Unicron! Cybertron and all its moons belong to me!
Galvatron is truly an example of biting the hand that feeds you. For Galvatron's prideful cry of defiance, Unicron answers by initiating an intense and painful torture, apparently part of the fine print Megatron signed up for when he made this bargain with Unicron. This built-in deterrent towards rebelliousness causes Galvatron to ache and groan in pain on top of the dais. As if to inform him the reason for his pain, Scourge calls up to Galvatron from the bottom of the stairs in case Galvatron had forgotten about his indentured servitude during his lust to avenge himself of Starscream and acquire leadership of the Decepticons.
But remember, we belong to him. I belong to nobody.
Galvatron echoes those words spoken earlier by Megatron at the idea of having any master above his own station.
You belong to me. No, I belong to nobody!
The pain increases at this continued obstinance until he can hardly bear it and falls all the way down the stairs. It is now clear to Galvatron the noose Unicron put around his neck. He realizes that if he doesn't acquiesce Unicron's wishes, then it will be the end of him. Knowing what it is that Unicron wants, and now more than ever, hoping to fulfill Unicron's wishes, Galvatron knows he better hop to it. If for no other reason than to be free of Unicron and never let this torture happen again. Only then does he finally submit and regain his composure.
I will obey, Unicron! Decepticons, to Earth!
A quick shot of the new ship Unicron bestowed to Galvatron as it hurtles through the colorful nebulae of space tells us that they are wasting no more time in completing the mission Unicron issued of them: to destroy the Autobot matrix of leadership by any means necessary.